In today's video, we're going to show you how you can save a ton of money in replacing the most expensive appliance in your home, and that is your HVAC unit. Now, there's a few methods you can do this. You can tackle it all yourself, get the equipment in and do it all yourself, and this video will be very detailed. Or alternatively, you can purchase your equipment from Alpine Home Air, and then you can have an HVAC contractor install said equipment. So there's a couple different methods you can go with, but in this video, we're gonna show you how to do this from start to finish. We're gonna be replacing this condenser. We're gonna level this out, make this look way nicer. We're going to replace a unit in an attic, which we haven't done a video on yet, so I'm excited for that. And we're going to address the potential flooding issue with a pan underneath that new furnace. So we're going to walk you through that whole process, furnace, coil, and condenser from start to finish. So let's get right into it. All right, so here's what we're working with up in the attic. So we have our main plenum box, and then we have two, looks like 14-inch or 16-inch flexes attached. So this will be really easy. We'll simply detach it from the furnace with these zip screws, set it aside, and we'll reattach to the top of our new furnace. Then we have our 80%, and we're gonna be installing a flex line that'll make this a lot easier, and it'll just attach directly to that. So for starters, we're going to turn off the breaker for this furnace, just to make sure that this switch is dead. We'll verify that with a voltmeter, make sure that everything's dead here. We'll turn the gas off at the valve down here, right over there. And then looks like the flex line is still in really good shape, so we can probably reuse that portion. And as you can see, what we're going to be fixing is this pan. So whoever put this pan in did not know what they were doing. So if this ever flooded, there's no safety switch for starters, and then it's sitting directly on the pan, so all the water would have to do is get up to a 1/4 inch and it would start flooding this attic. So we're going to resolve that with our new big pan that will cover the whole furnace, and then the supply plenum there, we'll just remove that and reattach it how it was. So while Terry is dismantling this, I'm going to get the system pumped down. So we're going to hop down to the condenser and pump all the refrigerant into the condenser, lock it in, and then this can all be disconnected here. All right, so here's our condenser. It's a pretty steep grade down in here, so that's going to be fun. So this is an old Armstrong condenser. Looks like 2002 is the manufacturing date, 16th week of 2002. So this unit is pretty stinking old. Now, fingers crossed that this unit is actually still running. The main purpose they wanted to do this system replacement was because the furnace was bad. But we're going to attempt to pump the refrigerant into this condensing unit, and we're going to do that by using the compressor. So hopefully the compressor is still functional, and we should find out here in just a few minutes. So up here we see our contactor. So we're going to wait, but to start this unit, we're going to press that contactor in, and if everything fires up, we can then pump all the refrigerant into the unit. Now, to do that, we're going to be using these king valves here. So we're going to remove the cap on this guy, and what we're going to do is we're going to close the high side king valve. It looks exactly like this, but smaller. We're going to close it all the way. And what that's going to do is it's going to prevent any refrigerant from getting pushed out of this, and all the refrigerant is going to get stacked in this condenser and pushed to this point and stop. And it's going to suck the refrigerant in from the evaporator coil, and again, it's going to push it into the condensing coil. It's going to stack it in here until it's at 0 here. And then while the compressor is running, we're going to tighten this and essentially lock it into the condenser. Now, that's how they're shipped from the factory, is pre-charged, everything's in the condenser, and you do this in reverse. So you actually open these when you're done pulling the vacuum on this portion of the system, you open these and it lets the charge into the system. We're basically doing that in reverse with the compressor. And what we're using here is an HVAC service tool. You can get these in my Amazon store. Just go to the video description and you'll see my Amazon store there. You can find virtually all the tools that we'll be using in this video in that store. Okay, so that's seated. We're just gonna give it a snug, and that's it. So the high side is done. You can just throw this cap back on to keep it in place. And next what we're gonna do is we're gonna close the high side. Next what we're gonna do is close the low side about almost to where it's fully closed, but we're gonna let enough room there to where refrigerant can still get in through here, and that way we won't have to spend a bunch of time cranking this down when we're almost to zero. So that's probably good right there. So we'll leave our wrench there, and all we have to do is attach our gauges to the low side service port. And we've just got these good old NAVAC gauges, analog gauges here, and these are low loss fittings. I highly recommend these. These are built into the hose. Before you could get an adapter to adapt a regular 1/4 inch like this one to a low loss, but I highly recommend getting this full hose set, and again, that's in my Amazon store as well. It just makes it a lot easier when you're connecting and disconnecting gauges to get refrigerant spurts to a minimum. Okay, so we've got refrigerant pressure showing up on our gauge. We got about 90 PSI. Now, as soon as we push this contactor in, the compressor, the fan will start, and we'll slowly watch this pressure decrease. And right when it gets to zero is when we're gonna lock this in completely. Okay, so I'm gonna try and do this with one hand. So I'm gonna use my tool to press this in while holding my camera here. And you'll notice as soon as we press this in, hopefully the compressor will kick on and our pressures will start to drop. All right, it's pretty loud. Bummer. So from time to time, you will get a unit that has a relief sensor that will, or sometimes they're built into the compressor and they won't let you go down. We saw it going down and then it stopped. So what it does is it transfers refrigerant from the high side to the low side because it sees that it's got too much pressure built up. Okay, so since we cannot pump the refrigerant into this unit with the compressor, unfortunately, we're forced to use our recovery setup to pump this refrigerant into that tank. Now, this is our Apion G5 Twin. You can get a extremely cheap recovery machine that works exactly the same as this. This is a professional grade one, and I have this linked in my Amazon store as well. Next, let's get our hoses connected here. So all we need is the blue connected there. This is in the off position. And then we're going to take our yellow line that goes in the middle and we'll go to the in port. And then we'll use that to go to the inlet of our recovery machine. And then we have this additional hose hooked up to our tank. This is a brand new tank. It has a vacuum on it. So we're gonna make sure not to introduce any air into the system. Okay, everything is tight. So we're gonna go ahead and open this up. That's going to let this refrigerant go into this yellow hose. So we're now going to crack this open and bleed it. That's gonna get any air out of this yellow hose. We'll also crack this one. That's going to get any air out of both of these hoses. Next, we're going to open this. That's going to let the refrigerant into this unit. Then we're going to open this one. And lastly, we can purge it right here at the tank. Okay, that should be plenty there. So again, making sure everything is tight. This is open. We'll go ahead and open this, and that's going to start letting refrigerant into this tank because there's a vacuum. Once this has settled, we'll turn our recovery machine on. Okay, so we should be ready to go ahead and turn this on. And there we go. Now we should start seeing this start to lower. And once we get to 0, we'll be ready to close this off and everything will have successfully been evacuated from this unit. All right, guys, so we're right at 0. I'm gonna go ahead and close this off, lock it into the tank. And that is it. So we can go ahead and disconnect everything. Everything's pumped into this tank, so we're good to disconnect our copper lines inside and outside. Okay, so now that we have our recovery stuff put up, we're just gonna verify that we don't have any juice here. So we're set on AC voltage. So we're just gonna start by going between these 2 hots on the contactor. So we have 0 there, and then we're gonna do each leg. So 1 will go to ground, 1 will go to this hot side, 0, and 0. And then just to confirm that our voltmeter is working, we'll test right here. Hey, buddy. He's just chilling in there. Check our line voltage, 240 volts. So we're good to go to disconnect that. Our thermostat wire is really easy. It's just 2 wires. Should just be wire nutted here. So disconnect those, cut our copper lines, cover those with electrical tape so they don't get any contaminants inside. And then we can take this unit out. We're gonna level it, put a new pad because it's way off right now. We did this one about probably 4 or 5 years ago, and it's still looking pretty good as far as the level goes. So that's where we're at, and we'll show you what we got upstairs in the attic as well. All right, guys, so here's where we're at. We got our blower removed from the furnace to make it lighter. We've got our gas disconnected, electrical disconnected. The front and back plenum are both disconnected. So we're just gonna kind of shift this plenum over, clean it up a little bit. And surprisingly, everything's relatively clean in here, but we'll vacuum everything out and we'll go ahead and cut our copper lines, lower the furnace and the coil, and then we'll come back and show you what everything looks like with nothing up here. All right, guys, so we got all of our old stuff out. It's definitely starting to warm up here, so we're trying to speed it up a little bit. We got our new pan for an emergency. If anything gets clogged for any reason, that pan will be way better than the existing one that was here. So we've got that in place just loosely, and then we just hoisted our new furnace, our new Blue Ridge furnace up. So what we did is we threw a ratchet strap around this way, and then we attached another one straight up. So Terry was up here pulling, and I was down there pushing the furnace up, and it wasn't too bad. So we're gonna set this in place, and then we can go ahead and get our coil up here and start attaching stuff. All right, so we got our pad placed. We got this all re-leveled, and our stakes are keeping everything in place. So everything is perfect for our new condenser. So we'll go ahead and get this wheeled over, set in place, and then we'll start making our connections here. Alrighty, guys, here's where we're at outside. So our line set is a little bit ghetto, but we went ahead and insulated up to here just to make this section look good. It's just so high up there that it would be really difficult for me to actually replace the line set, but there's nothing wrong with it. And then so we have our whip connected, and for this whip, I really would like to come back and change this and make it longer and just make it look better. But for the time being, we're gonna reuse the whip there, and I'll show you the electronics end of things here. So very basic. So we have our ground from our disconnect that goes here, and we have 2 hots, 1 hot there and 1 here. Polarity does not matter on this, and that's it for the high voltage. And then for the low voltage communication, it's just these 2 wires that come from the furnace, and they just attach to the yellow and the black here on this Blue Ridge system. And again, polarity doesn't matter. So our electrical section is done here. We can go ahead and put this cover on. And next, what we're going to focus on is getting our lines connected. This, I think, will work out really good to where we'll just do a street 45 like this right here. So we'll tweak this one a little bit and we should be able to get that to work. All right, guys, so here's where we're at up in the attic. I know it's been a minute since we went up here. So we have our return plenum mounted. We need to build a little plate right here. The pan is in, and we have these 3-inch risers to get us flush with the pan. So we'll have our secondary that goes into this condensate pump, and then we'll have our main condensate drain that will be over this level instead of the way it was, and that will go there. We'll also put a safety switch here on the secondary, so we'll have 3 different drains. We'll have a safety there. The main drain will come out and go to our condensate pump, and then we'll have this going into our pump as well. And of course, the pump has a safety switch that's wired in right here to break red. So we've got that wired in, so should this fail for any reason, it'll turn everything off. So we have our coil attached, and we're just working on this plenum. So the plenum is kind of weird. We're gonna have to build a couple of strips to seal that off. So not the most ideal plenum, but it has worked for the past however many years, so I think we should be fine there. And then we have a flexible B vent that's going to go from there to here, so that'll be super easy. And then kind of the last thing will be our line set, and we're going to go right there into the evap coil. So that's where we're at up here. And also on the electrical, we're going to mount our junction box up here somewhere, and then we're going to run MC down here, right here to the furnace. So that'll be a lot nicer than this Romex all over the place. All right, guys, so we got this all fitted out here. We're going to hop upstairs and get our copper lines fitted in there. Now, this particular unit did not come with a built-in TXV, so we're going to be using this piston. And every single unit that you get will come with a piston with the unit. So we're going to take out the piston that came in the coil, and we're going to put this one in, and we'll show you how to do that as well. All right, so not the prettiest thing, but this is all completely sealed all the way around. So we had a little bit extra just like it was on the old one. We got our line set rerouted here, and I'm going to show you how to remove this piston and put in a new one. Terry's working on the gas line here, so we've got hard pipe to here and a long flex over to the top, and then we'll have our exhaust go straight there. And then I think the last things are electrical, and meanwhile I should be brazing here in just a few minutes. So first thing is taking that cap off, and then what we're going to do is use this little tiny tool in here to pull the old piston out. Okay, so you're just going to use that little hook there right in the center, and then pull it out just like that. We'll see what size this is. It looks like a 0.76, and this is a 0.81. And they even have a little sticker you can stick next to it so you know what size it is. So we're gonna put that in the same orientation. So this one with the seal will go in like that. And that's it. Our seal is still there. Okay, so what comes in the box or attached to this unit is an elbow. It's pretty much always an elbow, but I actually carry these on my truck because sometimes if I'm using my RLS tool, I want to use these, and it actually will work out perfectly here. So we're going to come straight in, and we're going to attach our filter dryer right here. So we'll just cut this bell off, attach it there, and that'll be super easy, and we'll be completely ready to braze. So we're going to go ahead and clean this, cut this off, cut this to length, and attach it, and we'll show you what we got after that. All right, so we have everything fitted. Now, because this is in an attic, I think what I'm gonna do is Stay Bright 8 this. I have had zero issues. I love Stay Bright 8. It doesn't get as hot. You don't have to have a nitrogen flow, and it just makes things really easy, and I have yet to have a single problem with it. Not to mention, you don't have to be lugging tanks up here. You just have a MAP gas torch, and that's about it. So we're gonna get everything set up. We'll do this section first, and then we'll hop down to the condenser and get that done. All right, so for our Stay Bright 8, a critically important part of this is to use the Stay Clean Flux. Now this is where a lot of people don't like the idea of using this, but this part is pretty critical. You just don't want to use a ton of this. It is needed, but you don't have to load the thing up with flux to where it's getting all on the inside of your line. So we're just going to put a minimal amount. Well, I apologize, folks. I soldered this, and then afterward realized that my camera had stopped recording while I was still prepping. So this is basically the finished product here. So this was so fast. It took me just under probably a minute to do this. And with brazing, you really have to heat up all the way around, whereas this, you can heat up a couple of different sections and that solder is going to suck right in, no problem. Of course, we're going to do a pressure test on this to make sure that everything is good, but thus far I've had a single unit that has leaked right out of the gate, and the Stay Bright 8 soldering works so good, and I couldn't recommend it enough. Well, folks, I don't know what's going on with my camera, if it's from the heat in the attic or what, but I recorded this. I know I recorded it, but we used our Stay Bright 8 right here. It was super fast. I was able to do it in less than a minute, and I just inspected all the joints. This one took less than 30 seconds, so this is so fast, and I highly recommend it. And if you do want to see that process, you can check out some of my other videos that show the technique in more detail. But for right now, we're going to throw pressure on this system. So we're going to take this cover off right here, put our Schrader core removal tool on, and we're going to take this core out. We're going to charge it with 400 psi of nitrogen, let it sit for our test, and then once we've confirmed everything is good, we're going to do a little nitrogen purge and blow all of it out through that valve core. All right, so we have our core taken out. All we did here was we took this off of our core tool made by Apion, and what you have to do is put some pretty good pressure once you get it to go in the groove on the Schrader core, and you'll feel it kind of lock in. Then you'll unthread it all the way and it'll stay on your tool just like this. And then you can stick it up on top because it has a magnet. So we'll put our Schrader core tool on, and this is going to allow us to do a nice vacuum without having to go through one of those cores. And it's also going to allow us to put this nitrogen in quickly, and it's going to allow us to let that nitrogen escape rapidly, and that's going to push any debris out. So it's a nice little purge there. So we're going to take our blue side on our manifold here, hook that right up to our Apion tool, and next we'll make sure that's on. We'll get our yellow hose, and that's going to hook up to our nitrogen tank. Now, for those of you that didn't know, you can go to your local air gas supply and you can rent a smaller nitrogen tank for about $10 a day. So you would need to purchase this on Amazon. I have it in my Amazon store, but you can rent these for about 10 bucks a day. So you can have access to nitrogen to do some of these things, whether you're brazing or using Stay Bright 8. So we're going to turn this off, open this up all the way. Got plenty of PSI in there. So we're going to go ahead and feed in about 50 PSI of nitrogen, and then we're going to stop. And if we have any sizable leaks, we'll know pretty quickly. See how it's holding steady every time we stop? If you had a leak, you'd probably hear something and you'd see this slowly falling down. So we'll let this sit for about 5 minutes, and if it doesn't move at all, we'll go ahead and feed in the rest of our 350 PSI, and then we can do our pressure test. Okay, so if you have a situation where some regular foil tape doesn't work, this stuff works fantastic. This is just a specific brand, but any foil mastic tape is going to have this rubber sealant, and it will stick to just about anything. One thing you want to keep in mind too is that you want to make sure you're using a squeegee after you put the tape on to really flatten it down and make sure that it really adheres good to the metal. So here's where we're at so far. We've got the exhaust vent finished up, so that turned out really nice. It was super easy. So we have our condensate drain left, and our electrical is done. So we have our switch here. I think our condensate and our line set are the two last things. So we're getting to the home stretch here. All right, guys, so it's been over 30 minutes now. We're still right at 350. So our nitrogen test, pressure test has been successful. So we'll turn that off, and we're gonna do a little purge here. So we're gonna take this hose off, and we're just gonna open this all the way at once, and might get some sort of shield so you don't blow dirt everywhere. But this is a nice little purge to let any contaminants or anything out of the system. Now, before we take this all the way out, we're gonna put our Schrader core back in, and we're gonna move this core tool to the low side. This one's a little bit different, so it has the service port up on the top. But we're gonna put our Schrader core tool here, take that core out, and we're gonna be pulling our vacuum out through that larger port. And then what that's gonna allow us to do is leave the Schrader core in this side, and we'll just have our micron gauge on the high side with the Schrader core in. And then when we're done, we'll just pull the micron gauge off of the high side, and we won't have to fool with the Schrader core. Okay, so we have our core tool on our suction side. We took the core out, and we still have some pressure that we need to let out. Got our micron gauge set up here. And while that's bleeding off, we'll go ahead and get our True Blue hose out. All right, so we have our hose hooked up here to the Schrader core. I'll go ahead and turn this on. And by the way, this is a 3 CFM pump, and this can pull down a system in about 10 to 15 minutes. Even with 7/8 lines, this pump works awesome with the True Blue's massive hose and no core. It's a real game changer if you're in the field doing this. This makes a big difference. So you notice that pitch change, and we should see our micron show up here in just a second. All right, guys, here's the finished product. Got everything sealed up. Got our lines all finished up. Gas is in. The exhaust is in. Everything is sealed up nice. And then we've got our condensate pump. So our secondary goes into that, and the primary goes into that as well. And then our safety switch is wired into brake red, and we got that plugged in. So we're ready to fire this guy up and see what we got. All right, she's up and running. Fan sounds great. So let's go outside and check it out. All right, guys, so we've had this running for about 10 minutes now. We're at 610 microns, and our goal is to get to 500. And once we get as low as we can, we're going to leave this on. We're gonna isolate this guy right here. And what that's gonna do is a decay test. So we're gonna let it set for 5 minutes. And as long as we don't raise above 500 microns, we're golden and we're good to let the refrigerant in. Now, since this is a slightly different design, we have a quarter turn, so we don't have to use the Allen key for this. We just rotate it until it's parallel with the pipe, and then we'll open this one the same as we always do, and that will let all of the refrigerant into the rest of the system. Now, since it's not warm enough, we're gonna come back and check the charge and top it off if needed. But right now, we're just gonna let the charge in, start it up, make sure everything works good, and then we'll be on our way. All right, so we just isolated this guy, and we're doing our decay test now. We got it down to 250 microns. So we're gonna let this set for 5 minutes and then we'll be good to go. All right, so it's been 5 minutes and we've actually dropped since we stopped. So we have a really tight vacuum on this system. Really happy with that. So what we're gonna do next is, while we have everything like this, we're going to isolate our micron gauge. By the way, when you do that, this always goes up. I don't know why, but I've asked multiple people and they have the same thing. So we're gonna open both of these lines up. It doesn't matter which one first. Some say the suction, some say the liquid. If you're doing the liquid, that makes sense because it's going in the same direction that it would be going when the system is on. So we'll go ahead and open this up fully. And then we'll do that quarter turn suction line there. And we'll let this stabilize for 10 minutes or so, and then we'll turn it on. Okay, so both valves are open. Next, what we can do is take off our micron gauge. We'll get maybe a little spurt of refrigerant here, nothing major. And then next, what we're gonna do is take our true blue hose off, and we're gonna put this core back in. And then that will pretty much be the last step. Okay, so we just threaded that back on and took our other part of the tool off. So we're gonna slowly open this and make sure that that core works. That is it. So we'll throw our caps back on, get this cleaned up a little bit, and we'll get it started. All right, ladies and gentlemen, everything is buttoned up. So all that is sealed and ready to go. Everything turned out really nice here. So we're gonna go ahead and throw our disconnect back in. We should already be calling for cooling, so as soon as we put this in, our unit should kick on. There we go. Sounds great. It's already pulling heat out. Of course, it's not very, it's like 65 inside, so it's not going to be pulling a ton of heat out, but everything sounds great. Suction lines getting cold. Beautiful. All right, so we just signaled for our heating to come on. We're going to check, make sure that the furnace comes on good. And it's always a good thing to check because we had some wires that were rubbing right here. There we go. Okay. So we'll let this run for maybe 10 minutes or so, get that new heat exchanger oils burnt off. And we just got through running the AC. Everything was running perfectly fine. So yeah, everything is good to go. Got our safety switch there. These lines are golden. Our condensate pump is plumbed in. And our safety switch down here for the pump is also wired in. So we have 2 forms of safeties against flooding this attic. And yeah, everything turned out really nice. And the customer is going to be really happy with it. All right, guys, this install is fully complete. I was really happy with how everything turned out. This has been one of the first attic jobs that we've done in a long time, but everything looks really nice up there. We have all the safety measures in place and everything is fully functional. I'll probably have to come back and charge the system once it gets a little bit warmer. But as always, Alpine Home Air has donated this equipment and made this video possible. So huge shout out to Alpine Home Air. The customer was thrilled to get this completely free and they're gonna be really happy with this system. Now, if you're in need of an HVAC system, make sure and check out alpinehomeair.com where you can find Blue Ridge equipment as well as some other brands, and they will really take care of you and make sure that you get exactly what you need. Their customer support is next level and they really want you to be happy and satisfied with your equipment. I hope you found this video helpful, and if you want to see some more of the Blue Ridge install videos, check out this playlist right here. Happy HVACing, guys. Later.